Dan Bidondi reporting for TruthRadioShow.com, exposing the deeds of evil, declaring war on the New World Order. And here we go, yet another so-called Bible contradiction by Bible haters. And also, there's a religion out there who believes that Jesus returned in 33 AD because they base this whole study off of the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 34. And this is also the anti-Bible people love to use this to say, oh, this is a mistake Jesus made. He said he would return in that generation, and he never did. And the 33 ADers say, oh, Jesus returned because he said so. Well, let's find out exactly what the Bible says. And this ain't the opinion of Dan Bidondi, not me, okay? This is not my opinion. This is what the Bible says. So, everybody knows the story about Jesus being on the Mountain of Olives. This is before his crucifixion, talking to his disciples. Disciples ask, when will you return? Okay, so now let's see what the Bible has to say about this. So I'm going to use today, for the sake of the English part, because I usually use the King James Version, the Authorized King James Version, the Wycliffe Bible, and so on, the older Bibles. But for the sake of people watching, and you could fact check this, you could go through, because I know people, oh, I don't like that translation, or you shouldn't use that translation. But here we are on BibleGateway.com, and you can click on any translation you want. I went through about a dozen of them already. There's like 30 translations here. I went through over a dozen of them. They all say the same thing in this particular verse. So here we go with the big, so-called big translation. Now, as we always point out on TruthRadioShow.com here, what people do is they love to take single Bible verses. False prophets do this to use them for their advantage. People who hate the Bible and say we could disprove the Bible with this, love to take verses out of context, and most of the time they have nothing to do with what they're trying to talk about in the first place. So here we go, the famous verse, "Surely I say unto you." Now he's talking to the disciples when they asked when his return will be. And we're going to read the whole thing in its context. But here we go. First thing, "Surely I say unto you, this generation will not by no means pass away till these things take place or be fulfilled. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never by no means pass away." But they take this generation will by no means pass until these things take place. So right away they said, well, see, Jesus is telling the disciples, this generation, their generation will not pass until these things are done. So therefore, he returned in 33 AD. Or the Bible haters say, oh, he said this, but these things never happened. They are right on one thing. Yes, they did not happen then. But is this a contradiction? Is this an error in the Bible? Or is this making the Bible false? Well, let's find out. Or is this proving the first century 33 ADers correct? Did Jesus really return the second coming in the first century? So let's see what the Bible has to say. Not people, not me. What does the Bible say? And again, here's the scene here. We're on the Mountain of Olives when Jesus left the temple. You see the temple in the background. Jesus went up to the Mountain of Olives. There's his disciples, and that's the scene going on here. Matthew 24, and again, doesn't matter what you go to any translation you want right now. We'll give you a second. Go to Bible Gateway or BibleHub.com, either one. You can go to any translation, okay? Let's read Matthew chapter 24. Okay, and I'm using the New King James Version. And Jesus predicts the destruction of the temple. Basically, Jesus says, here we go. Then went out and departed from the temple, Jesus did, and his disciples came up to him, the buildings of the temple. Jesus said to them, do you not all see these things? Surely I say to you, not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down. And that was a prediction of the destruction of the, there was a second temple at the time, and it was destroyed. And the signs of the times in the age, end of the age, now he sat on the Mountain of Olives. The disciples came to him privately saying, tell us, when will these things be? Because Jesus says about him returning. He's always preached about his return. So they asked him, Jesus, when will these things be? And this is right now, this is where the scene is, on the Mount of Olives, where Jesus spoke to his disciples after he left the temple. And here we go. Tell us, when will these things be? And Jesus lays out what's to come before his return. And that will be the sign of your coming. And they're basically asking, tell us when these things will be, what will be the sign of your coming, and the end of the age. So they're asking 3 questions right there. 3 questions, and Jesus is going to answer them all very in detail, very vividly in detail. So tell us, when will these things happen? What will these things be, and what's the end of the age, and the signs of your coming? So Jesus says, and answers them, take heed that no man deceives you, for many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, that will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not near yet. For a nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in diverse places, and all these things are the beginning of sorrows. And then they will deliver you up to tribulation again to kill you. Basically saying they're going to they're going to declare war on Christians, which they're doing, and they're going to kill you for my name's sake. And you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended, as we're seeing today, everybody's offended by everything. And many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets shall rise up and deceive many. Now you see people from the 700 Club, the Pope, TBN, the whole 9 yards, all these false prophets preaching a global religion. And because of lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold, but he who endures to the end shall be saved. He's talking about this tribulation here. And the gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all of the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come, the great tribulation coming here. Therefore, you will see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet. So now you need to understand, okay, take note. Right now he's making reference to the book of Daniel. That Daniel lays out exactly every detail about what the abomination of desolation is. So you need to understand what the abomination of desolation is in the book of Daniel. So now he's making reference to the prophet Daniel in his book. And stand in the holy place, whoever reads it, let him understand. Now he specifies, you need to understand. That's what he's saying. Understand. You can't just read it. I don't know how many people say, I read the Bible and it's a hoax, but no, there's a difference between reading and understanding it. All right? Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house. Let him who is in the field not go back to his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and those who are nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight may not be on the winter or on a Sabbath. For then, okay, pay attention, this is talking about future, okay, then, this means the future. Doesn't mean now, doesn't mean this, it means the future. For then, there will be a great tribulation. Then, not now, not this generation, then. No, not your generation, I mean to the disciples, then. This generation is talking about is the future. There will be a great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time, nor shall ever be. And unless in those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. For the elect's sake, those days will be shortened, because no flesh will be left alive for what's to come, if that, stayed longer than it's supposed to be. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, and even possible, the elect. They'll deceive many people. And he says, see, I have told you beforehand. In other words, saying, don't listen to anybody that says Christ is here. I don't know how many religions, how many prophets have come to say, the return of Christ, or any, all these false religions popping up say Christ returned in the 1800s. I forgot what that religion's called. They believe Jesus returned in the 1800s, and they believe, other religions believe he returned in 33 AD, or the first century. But we're going to go on with here. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out. Or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes, this is when you know, right here, this is where you start to know that he's not talking about the first century. Right here is where you need to pay attention. And this goes against everything the first century people teach, that he returned in the first century, and the other religion that teaches he returned in the 1800s. And there's many other religions that say you return different areas. But right here, this debunks it all, right there. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For wherever the carcass is, the eagles will be gathered. And then right here, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. And then he's not talking about a regular solar or lunar eclipse here, because he goes on to say the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. So anybody here right now, you tell me any time in the history of humanity has this ever happened? First century ideas, those 1800 returned people. Tell me, when did this ever happen? And also right here, about the lightning shining, flashing east and being seen from the west. This is a Hollywood grand entrance that he's coming. The whole world's got to see it. Did the whole world see Jesus come in the first century? No, the whole world didn't even know about Jesus at the time. Did they see the whole world see Jesus coming in the 1800s? No. That would have been all over headline news in the newspapers. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. And then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming out of the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. He's coming out of the clouds. He's not born again in the flesh, as some people say they're the Christ. He didn't come out of a cave or a desert or anything like that, as he says. The whole world's got to see this. Like the lightning, the whole sky sees lightning. And he's saying right here, everybody's got to see it. All eyes will see him. Great glory. This is a giant grand stage Hollywood effect. In other words, like you see a star come out, all right, when they introduce him in a play. The curtain opens, all the spotlights around that star. That's the type of style that's going to happen when Jesus returns. Everybody's going to see him. Everyone. And he will send his angels with the great sound of trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds and from one end of the heaven to the other. This is a monster cataclysm. I don't know what you want to call it, but this is the biggest thing that's going to happen in the history of humanity. The whole world at once is going to see this. The whole world's going to hear this, okay? And nobody can say right now you've heard and seen anything like this in the history of mankind, because you're a liar if you think so. So, and we move on to the famous verse here. And in the parable of the fig tree, and everybody should know the fig tree is referring to Israel. But that's a whole different ball of wax right now. And now learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branches already become tender and put forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you all see these things, know that it is near at the door. In other words, he's telling you, you don't know the day of the hour, because everybody knows the Bible should know that you do not know the day of the hour. The angels in heaven don't know the day of the hour. Only God himself knows when he's sending the sun back. But you will know the season, as he's telling you. He says that in I think Matthew too. You will know the season, but you don't know the day of the hour. Literally the day, literally the hour. But he's telling you, he's telling you here, you'll know the season. You will know, because you know when the fig tree becomes tender and puts forth leaves, and this is also referring to Israel prophecy too, you'll know that the summer is near. So, like, farmers know this, okay, with the trees and whatnot. So it's the same thing he's saying, you're going to know. We're right about time when he's about to come back. And surely I say unto you, this generation will not pass, by no means pass away until all these things take place. Now, this is where the magic question is. Is Jesus telling the disciples, let's go up here, is Jesus telling the disciples, your generation will not pass until these things come forth? Or he's saying this generation? He's saying this generation that he's describing. He's not saying your, because he's, remember now, he's talking directly to the disciples. He would have said, surely I say unto you, your generation will not pass until these things take place. He said, no, this generation he's talking about. And even for us in the book of Daniel, that gives future prophecies. And all these prophecies, none of them have come true at all until recent years, until the 1900s, when these things started coming to pass. And there's like 2 or 3 big prophecies left. the third temple to come, the coming of the Antichrist, and it's about it. And it's well, you get the stars falling from heaven, but we're almost there. But nobody can tell me right now any of these things happened back in the first century or even the 1800s. You can't, because if you do, you're a liar and you do not know history. Because real world history plays a lot in this here. So now can you tell me, is Jesus talking to the disciples about their generation? No, because he would have said, in other words, if I was talking to you about something, and if it was your generation, I would say your generation, not this generation. Okay, Jesus says, I say to you, this generation, not your generation. This generation will by no means pass away until these things take place. Then he goes on to say, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away. And that's in its context. And you can go on, nobody knows the day of the hour like I told you, but you will know the season, because he gives you the prophecies, as it builds up toward his return. But and then he goes on to say, because I know there's people out there all the time, like Harold Campin, all these people, the October, September surprise crap, okay, that say they know when Jesus returns. No, he goes on to say not even, I'm going to do a video on that too, but not even the angels in heaven know. Not even the angels in heaven know, but my Father only. So if not the angels in heaven know, but only the Father, what makes you think you know? What makes you think your religion knows? Because you don't. Because you're a liar. You're a false prophet, if you believe so. So people need to read and pay attention to the Bible. And this goes out to the first century, 33 AD people, the 1800 return people, and especially the people, I don't know, countless numbers of people, millions have set out for over 1,000 years to try to debunk the Bible, to try to disprove the Bible, using things like this. Now, I want to mind you, false prophets use verses out of context. If you give one verse to 10 different people, you're going to have 10 different interpretations, more than likely. But if you read that one verse in its context, like we just did, now we could all clearly see, clear as day, that what this verse means. Everybody could say, oh yeah, now I know the full interpretation. It's like anything. Any book you read it in its context, which is the paragraph or the chapter of the subject what they're talking about. So there you go. It's in its context, not the words from Dan Bidondi, okay, not my opinion. This is what the Bible has to say. So again, one more time. Now, could you say this is a Bible contradiction now? Oh, Jesus said these things would happen there. I love how they do that. People who hate the Bible. Jesus told the disciples these things will happen before the generation was over. No, he did not. And they say, none of these things happen, so therefore the Bible is a hoax, it's a liar. Oh, no, Jesus did not say that. First of all, you need to know how to read and comprehend things before you go on and try to disprove something that you know nothing about. And those people who say they know the Bible, that preach false religions, that said he returned already, you need to learn how to understand and read the Bible right. Because it's clear as day, and I'm not going to keep repeating myself, and I have to repeat myself sometime because people, thick-headed, we live in an ADD society, unfortunately, and unfortunately you have to over and over again repeat something, and this is here, right in black, white, right in the scripture itself. And again, if you want to compare verses, whatever Bible you want to use, the Jubilee Bible, whatever, you'll see the same thing. And I'm not going to go through all the translations. You can do that on your own. This generation, not your generation. He's talking directly to the disciples, not your generation, this generation that he's talking about. And I already went through every translation earlier, but you can go to BibleHub.com or BibleGetaway.com, or if you have Bibles yourself, different translations, go look it for yourself, plain and simple. It's all the same. It all says the same thing in chapter 24, verse 34. This generation, okay, that means the future generation. And all these prophecies, like I said, all of them have not been fulfilled into the late 1800s, especially 1900s, and there's still a few more prophecies yet to be fulfilled. But the Bible's prophecy here is 110% dead on accurate to date, with 0 errors. And yes, the Messiah is coming, the real Messiah. He will be coming from the clouds. Now, this third temple coming up, I want to warn people right now, because this talk said they're going to build the third temple in Israel. A lot of Israel people think it's the Messiah. The global government thinks it's the Messiah. The Pope thinks it's the Messiah. All right, but the real Messiah has already come, and he's going to be coming again after this so-called Messiah comes out of the third temple. This Messiah is going to be the Antichrist that's coming from the third temple. So do not fall for his deception. He's going to do things, miraculous things like God, the Bible said here, that you will not believe. So people are going to fall for this and think he's the coming of, the return of Christ. But he's not. He's the Antichrist. And Jesus comes after this clown. Because this clown coming, he's going to deceive the entire world. The whole world's going to love him. Every religion's going to fall for him. But the only Christ that's a real Messiah is the one that's going to come after him through the clouds, not through a temple. And this is Dan Bidondi for TruthRadioShow.com, exposing the deeds of evil, declaring war on the New World Order. Hit me up at Dan Bidondi at Twitter. And again, TruthRadioShow.com is all my listings there. God bless and shalom. Declaring war on the New World Order. TruthRadioShow.com.